everybody. Welcome to episode number 9. Number nine. Referencing the old Beatles White Album. This is, yes, episode number 9 of A Rebel Without Applause, the Bill Kalmanson podcast. And yes, that's me, the lonely merchant of mirth, just an abstract and brief chronicler of this cockeyed caravan called life. And I just wanted to reference that, a word about abstract and brief chronicler. That was an expression or a turn of phrase used by Hamlet to describe the players. Those were the traveling comedians and actors who arrived at Elsinore to entertain the court. So in Act 2, Scene 2, Hamlet warns Polonius to treat these actors well. He describes them as these abstract and brief chronicles, because after your death you were better have a bad epitaph than their ill report whilst you live. So in my own way, I'm trying to hold up a mirror to morons, to use irony to expose idiocy and comedy to confront corruption. I just hope I can hold on to my security clearance. So what's up in my little universe? My personal life is cratering. My one-year relationship has crashed up against the commitment, where are we going wall. And I was reminded of one of my old jokes, and that was when my girlfriend asked me, she asked, do you love me? I thought to myself, what am I, a fortune teller? I won't know till you dump me. Well, she did dump me, and now I know. What can I say? I give great boyfriend, but I just have a hard time with domestic dude. And she basically accused me of being fearful of commitment, which, to be fair, I guess, yeah. I mean, I am afraid of commitment. I'm afraid of stuff that will hurt me. I'm afraid of terrorists. I'm afraid of drunk drivers. I'm afraid of handguns and hand grenades and mass murderers. Well, why am I afraid? Because I'm afraid of stuff that can hurt me. I see the wreckage out there. I see the parade of my male friends suffering from PTSD, and it scares me. I mean, marriage scares me. What is it? 60% of all marriages end in divorce, and that's not half as bad as the other 40% that end in death. So probably should have seen this coming a couple of months ago. I did get an early warning signal when I saw her on Tinder, and I should have known something was in the works. After all, that's actually where I met her. I met her on Tinder, and I'll never forget when we first met. We actually rendezvoused in the Beyond section of Bed Bath & Beyond, and it was instant chemistry. It started off all hot and heavy. Yeah, I was all hot, and she was a little heavy. But anyway, I'm suffering with that. We'll see how that goes. And to be fair, there are always two sides. In a relationship, there are always two sides to any story. There's the girl's side and, of course, the girl's best friend side. And yes, she has needs. I get them. My only thing is, when we let our anxiety about the future make the present so frigging miserable, it makes me want to run for the hills. So we'll see what happens. I'm betwixt and between. Still, there's just something so comfortable about having the same woman reject you every night. I don't know if I can let that go. Anyway, enough about my little personal life. As Bogey said, the lives of 3 people, or in this case 2 people, don't amount to a hill of beans in this world. And this world, the world that I'm in, like the world that Bogey lived in at the eve of World War II, demands attention. It's hard to ignore in spite of what we may be feeling. So on the political front, what can I say? The American Telenovela continues. As of yesterday, the man in the ostrich suit, that's Paul Manafort, was convicted, and Michael Cohen, the loyal legal lion, the one who would take a bullet for his capo boss, now cops a plea. And so for the PVP, that's Putin's vice president, the noose tightens, the temperature rises, the billionaire brat boy is feeling the heat. He's starting to look like Hitler in his bunker, folks coming at him from so many angles. I mean, Cohen's got his number, and my guess is that Manafort will be squealing soon, and then there's Flynn and that Greek dude Papadopoulos. There's this one and that one, and please, whatever you do, don't forget that beautiful black temptress, Amorosa. And I think as a dedicated podcaster and as a honest chronicler of the scene, I think it's important to recognize her now because in all likelihood, her 15 minutes of fame have nearly expired, and my guess is she will disappear into this mosh pit of obscurity very soon. But nonetheless, she is, if you don't know, she's this very hot black lady it's very often seen with a hand-sized crucifix around her neck, and she's smart, and she's sassy, and yes, she's sexy, and yes, she may be an opportunist. After all, she did do the bidding of the PVP as a smiling prop standing behind as many campaign events. But now, with tapes at the ready, she is ready, willing, and able to fight this fucker to the finish. So you go, girl. Let me say this. If this had happened to Obama, the Republicans would have lynched him on the White House lawn. There would not have been any kind of due process. But for the PVP, he lives in his own universe, and for him, in that universe, we know that black lives don't matter, Muslims don't matter, and if you're black and Muslim, you matter less, and maybe, for that matter, white lives don't matter. Why? Because to him, nothing fucking matters, just himself. He's the center of his own universe. And maybe, I don't know, on some level, there's some truth there. After all, if you go big picture, our Earth is less than a dot. We occupy a small planet in a huge solar system, which is just a tiny corner of a massive galaxy, of which there are millions and maybe billions of other galaxies, all of which exist in a universe that is expanding at the speed of light. All of which begs the question, at least to me, what really matters? Well, maybe then all matter matters. Black matter and white matter matter because in a universe nearly devoid of matter, all matter really matters. So yes, black lives do matter. They matter a lot. As a matter of fact, they matter so much that maybe, I don't know, we should all be kneeling for the national anthem, or else nothing will matter. Regards kneeling for the national anthem, I always found that ironic because people kneel before God in the church before they go to the football games where they have to stand before the flag. And so if they mix it up a little bit, what does it matter? Anyway, be that as it may, I'm rambling. I read an interesting piece that I thought was particularly, it was like a op-ed piece somewhere, I can't even remember where, but I thought it was particularly relevant to my own life. And I still, frankly, grapple with this issue. I just, in my own way, alluded to it 1 second ago. And that is, how do we handle the guilt of white privilege? My first reaction, you know, as a beneficiary of white privilege, I'm a little defensive. I'm thinking, hey, I'm Jewish. My people, we didn't own slaves. We just auctioned them. But no, seriously, there's an appropriate, I don't know, appropriate, I hate that word. I'm not a member of the appropriate police, but I would say this to my WIWLs, that's my well-intended white liberals, I don't think it's good enough to just have black friends on Facebook. My advice is challenge your preconceptions, confront your prejudices, cross boundaries, get out of your comfort zone, and integrate yourself. Just for one night, maybe you could give up the kale salad and the gluten-free pasta, escape your gated community or high-security condo, get out your Ebonics to English dictionary, and go visit the hood. And if you're in La La Land, take a drive, for example, down Crenshaw Boulevard, sample the barbecue chicken, dig the fried catfish, gorge on the collard greens, splurge on that pecan pie. It's all there for you in a whole potpourri of soul food venues right there. So, and let me tell you, that shit is good, and that shit is tasty, and if you're not careful, it will also give you diabetes. As a matter of fact, the other night I was in my... where was I? I was in my favorite little chicken shack off the corner of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X Boulevard across from the Medgar Evers Park next to the statue of Rosa Parks. Anyway, I go to the bathroom, and I'm standing there, and this big black guy strolls up to the urinal next to me, and curiosity kills. So I glance over the partition, and I check him out, and it's like, holy shit, I had that brother beat. He was tiny. And then I thought to myself, there you go. Another stereotype down the drain. So go out, confront your expectations. Your life gets better, that's for sure. Not too long ago, I read an interesting book, and which I wanted to recommend here, and it's called The Empire of Cotton, and it's by this professor dude named Sven Becker, and what it does, like the title infers, The Empire of Cotton traces the history of that rather singular and essential commodity across the centuries. And I think the book offers a very compelling portrait of how basically some white guys invented the first world. And to summarize, in my view, the book sort of goes like this. So for eons, people made their own clothes, first from hides and wool, and then spun and woven from fibers yielded by a plant that in its multiple genetic variations was nearly ubiquitous around the world, at least in the warmer climates. And this is the plant we generally refer to as cotton. And there it was in all its glory all around the world. And so for millennia, humans homespun their own thread and weaved their own cloth to make the clothing that covered their otherwise naked forms. And this was an essential skill to all human survival, especially in the upper reaches of the northern hemisphere where it could get really nippy and there were only so many bear hides to go around. So all of this went on. This sort of home enterprise activity went on uninterrupted for generation after generation, centuries after centuries, until sometime in the late 1700s, right around the time of the American Revolution, something changed. Something big happened. And it started like this. Some tinkerers, not engineers, but just tinkerers, experimenters over in merry old England, figured out you could attach a water wheel to a river with a axle, I guess, and gears, and get something called power. And then instead of one spindle making one thread, you could attach 5, 10, or maybe even 50 spindles, each of which producing thread. And instead of one loom to weave cloth, you could attach 5, 10, or yes, maybe even 50 looms, and bingo, you have cloth in massive volumes, and you have a brand new invention before you, something never seen before in the annals of human history, and that is a factory. And this factory, this new invention, this place becomes ground zero for what we later refer to as the Industrial Revolution. And if you were lucky enough to own that factory, to control the means of that production, you have something also that has never been seen before in such quantities, and that's profit. And by God, there's a shiny new religion called capitalism to make you feel very good about that profit. Only one problem. If you want to keep that factory going, you got to get more cotton. You got to get lots of it, and you got to get it fast and cheap. So these new titans of industry, these proto-capitalists, they wondered, well, where are we going to get this cotton? We could maybe, where do they have it? We could go to India. They've got some cotton, or Egypt. They have very good thread count. No, that's not enough good land there, and besides, it's very fucking far. Well, there's a lot of good land across the pond, mate, over in America, but unfortunately, it's jammed full of pesky native people, and they don't like to work, and when they do work, they just die right away. So what do we do? Well, what the hell are those militias for anyway? Just go kill them or move them into the desert, those Indians, where nothing grows. Just get them out of there. So a few wars and a nice little genocide later, okay, cool. We got the land. But guess what? Picking this cotton is hard frigging work, and it kills my back. Who can we make do that shit? Wait a minute. Well, they got some black people cutting sugarcane on the islands, and then there's some more of them growing tobacco on that eastern seaboard. Maybe they'll do it. Yeah, but we need those black people to grow tobacco, and we need those black people to pick the sugarcane. Otherwise, we won't have any rum, and I love my rum, and I love my cigars. Well, I do hear that they got tons more black people in Africa. Let's build some more boats and sail them over. So what do? They get these Africans, chain them up, cram them into ships, and sail them over to America to pick the cotton in the new lands that they just got from the Indians. And so the Africans, they get here, and they scream like, "Are you kidding me? You couldn't pay me to pick cotton." "Well, guess what?" laughs the plantation owner. "It's your lucky day. We ain't going to pay you because you are a fucking slave." But, stammers the black guy, no buts. "We got the guns, you don't. Get to work." And so they picked the cotton that fed the jaws of the factories in England, that spit out the cloth that they sold back to America and the rest of the world, and thus the virtuous circle of exploitation and profit was completed, wealth was accrued, armies and empires were expanded and fortified, and that's pretty much how and why we got the first world. That's how it happened. And we're living with that reality today. That's our truth. And that's the truth that we had, and it's the truth that exists today and maybe into the future. And a lot of people, they don't really want to face the truth of our history. Some flat out deny it, especially slavery. You see those folks out on the field picking cotton? They weren't slaves. No way. They were interns. They're getting valuable work experience. They're building their resumes. They're making important contacts for the future. Not really. Anyway. The Empire of Cotton, worth a read, worth a visit. Really, it's interesting just how you can trace the path of this commodity and get to a kind of truth about where we are today. And then I know this sounds like I'm some sort of radicalized communist. I don't know if that's the truth. I mean, I did go to Berkeley. I didn't change the world, but I did sleep with women who refused to shave their legs, and I'm proud of that. But I'm just not, I don't know where I sit on the radical spectrum. I'm not the guy you'd find in like the tent at an Occupy rally. I'm more or less just an abstract and brief chronicler. I'm not a communist. I do like Bernie, but I don't know if indeed I qualify as a socialist. But there is something, when you think about these ideas, that is fundamentally contradictory about unregulated plantation capitalism and a democracy. So the owner of a contemporary company, a CEO, he today has almost baronial, feudal-like powers over his workers. His whim is, with few exception, his workers' command, all of which seems, to me at least, fundamentally at odds with a government structure that was supposedly designed to provide for the general welfare. And that's why these private sector titans, these brat boy billionaires, are so dangerous. Their mindset is fundamentally feudal. They're used to getting what they want, when they want, from whomever they want, which is why, and this is my transition, Me Too ain't nothing new. It's basically as old as time itself. The chiefs had their harems, the king his courtesans, the slave owner his concubines, the CEO consorted with his secretaries, the movie mogul had his starlets. This stuff's been going on since frigging forever. It doesn't mean it's right. It just means that, what does it mean? It means he who has the hammer pounds, and he or she who doesn't gets pounded. It's the essential, conundrum that we face if you take away the sexual prerogatives of the rich and the powerful and the famous. You basically have undermined the motivational basis for our whole big daddy polyamorous system. Hell, why do you think these assholes are working so hard? It's their version of the American dream. If you work hard, if you bully anybody in your way, if you cheat, lie, and steal, you too can have all the porn stars you can afford. Until, of course, that porn star is Stormy Daniels. But that's another story for another time. And it's a story that's looming bigger after yesterday's news. I mean, for me, I live in the sort of wake of that American dream, that belief system that was bequeathed to me as a young boy growing up reading Playboys and then later Penthouses. And Hugh Hefner, actually, he was the personal embodiment of that dream, of that privilege. There's no wonder that Cosby and so many like him were frequent guests at the mansion. No wonder that the PVP was the owner of the Miss Universe contest. They were the living embodiment of that dream. And that's, that's sort of helps me see this world that we're looking at it a little more clearly. The alternate American dream, the real American dream. And it's a threat to us, I guess. I don't know. My biggest fear, though, is, I don't know, kind of dovetailing back to this whole Russian thing, is that my biggest fear actually is not that the Russians will hijack our democracy. It's that the Ruski hackers will take down American porn sites. I mean, I consider that a direct assault on our sovereignty and infrastructure. The day that goes down, folks, will frigging freak. You want to see civil unrest? You want to see riots in the street? Forget the elections. Forget friggin' democracy. I mean, young people look at their porn sites like it's a God-given civil rights, like they're owed their porn. They have no idea what we of at least my generation had to go through to get our porn. They have no clue what it is to thread a Super 8 projector in the middle of the night, or sneak past the fat guy at the newsstand, or steal the old man's penthouse and return it in the morning before he needs it. So if the Russians take our porn, I don't know what we'll do. It will be revolution in the streets, I guess. The only silver lining is that if our porn is absconded, it will force me and presumably others to actually use something that has over the years withered like an unused limb, and that is imagination and fantasy. Talk about a muscle that has atrophied. I can remember, it's not unlike with the pre-smartphone days when you actually remembered phone numbers. Remember that? Nowadays, we've cleared that space in our brains and gave it to our iPhones, our devices. And it's the same with sexual fantasy and imagination. That's been relegated to our porta-porn devices, i.e. my iPad and desktop computer and maybe even my phone. So I try to stay nimble, and I'm trying to adapt to all the new technology with smartphones, tablets. There's so many new and wondrous ways to miscommunicate. I know, because I've miscommunicated my way out of a relationship. That's why I think I'm going to take an ESL class, and that's it's emoji as a second language. Pretty soon, the way we're going, it'll be a first language. Language as we know it will disappear. We'll revert back to hieroglyphics and cuneiform symbols like our Egyptian ancestors. We'll be using the most modern of tools to express what is most primitive within us. It's a cool turn of phrase. That might be a subject for another podcast, for another day. Until then, I wanted to extend to you folks my gratitude as a lonely merchant of mirth, as an abstract and brief chronicler of these most tempestuous times. I once again bid you adieu.